Suzanne Wagner is a professional psychic, having counseled over 20 Hollywood stars over the last 20 years, is a published author, teacher, and speaker. She works as a spiritual motivator, intuitive coach, and motivational speaker. Suzanne Wagner was also a soloist for the Ballet West Company and also danced with the German Opera in Berlin, Germany. She works with couples on relationship and teaches workshops on palmistry, numerology, tarot, channeling, and intimacy. She's also a published author with 2 books on numerology as well as tarot, available on CD and book on Amazon.com. She works with individuals and companies to find ways to maximize the inner and outer potential of their work and their life.
Welcome here to Quantum Living, again with Ilona, and today with my very special guest, Susan Wagner, whom I have known for 25 years. And I didn't know that she was as amazing as she was. And now I want to tell the world, she is phenomenal. She is my psychic reader. She's my go-to person when I need help. She's my, Suzanne, where is everything lining up this year? And when do I sign a contract? And you know, the amazing thing is, everything that I kind of see lining up, she goes, well, you'll probably see in this month that happening, this month that. And if you have a choice, pick this one. And actually, my life oftentimes lines up in a good way with the right timing. It lines up. And then she even has told me things that are scary, that have happened, but that have helped me to be prepared. So I want to invite you today to meet Susan Wagner here with me on Women's Broadcast Television Network. And I've already given, Susan, I've already just given a little intro before I started talking about you and your work. And now I'd like to ask you to give us like a little elevator spiel about who you are and what you do. So you, in a nutshell, say what you do.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here with you. I'm really honored that there's this whole new station that's happening and I get to have this interview with you. I feel just wonderful about that. And you know, for me, being a psychic, as you've kind of explained, I'm a little bit multifaceted, multidimensional, and kind of holographic in my perspective, because I think that things aren't flat. I don't think they're linear. I think that they're kind of circular. And I, like you and I are like the sacred tool keepers. I mean, we are fascinated by all the tools and we see the interconnectedness of the tools. And in my doing readings with people, I try to mix those together because I think people are kind of like a gemstone, that if you look at them through one facet, you see one thing. And if you look at them, twist the stone around and look at them from another facet, you'll see a completely different angle of perception. But when you really look at them all from all the angles, you see a gemstone. And that's where the accuracy comes in, because I think that if you only look at the flaw, that's not necessarily good. And if you only look at just the beautiful light, that's also not going to be completely accurate when things are going bad. And I think that we're down here all to learn something. And I think we're here to learn from each other. And you and I we want to heal people. We want to teach people. We want to inspire people. We want to motivate people. I mean, we're just these energies that feel like there's so much to offer and so much to give. And I have my set of tools and you have your beautiful set of tools. And I love that because we learn from each other in the process. So I don't think it's like I'm doing a reading on you. It's like that I'm feeling into you and we kind of play with the energies and we kind of play with the matrix and we start to notice where it's getting stuck or where it's getting hung up. And then we find the way through that stuck place to get to the other side. So,
well, yeah, you know, Susan, when I had gotten readings, I mean, every year I come to you and I remember I met you in Hawaii. At the time, you didn't know who I was. I was this young girl. You looked at my hands and you said, oh my God, you're going to have 5 best-selling books in your life. I hadn't written one yet. You didn't even know me from Adam. We were on a hike. We were overlooking a waterfall. It was on Maui, I believe. And you said that, and I'm like going, And I believe I was in the process of writing. I had started maybe conceptualizing my children's book in 1993. So actually, you know, now it's out in Hindi. And last night I saw the trailer they made for me for the book. It's so amazing. And you were right on with everything. You said how my life would go, where it would go, what would happen. And now, 25 years later, these things have all happened, and I can vouch. I mean, you've obviously done Hollywood stars for the last 20 years, as I remember, and obviously they would pick you. I mean, I would, I still do pick you. So I'm offering people a gemstone of a person here, and I am offering them. I hope a lot of people take the offer up. And then you are going to share with us a few maybe insights. So when you say you use multiple tools, what kind of tools do you use?
I tend to start when I'm doing a reading, I start with the astrology, and I'm not that much into kind of doing your natal chart and going through all those details, because there's a lot of astrologers out there that can do that. Most people want to kind of know what's happening this year, like what's happening next, like where are we going from here? So I tend to look at the astrology from the standpoint that, okay, this is your chart, and now what's happening as it's progressing, and how are the planets going to be hitting, and where are the problem areas or the glitchy points, and where are the great points where you can totally let go and surrender, and how are things aligning so that beyond a shadow of a doubt that's going to work. You can totally trust at that point. You can totally let go at that point. So I start with the astrology more.
Mm-hmm.
Then I go to the numerology, and the numerology kind of tells you kind of your map, like what your gifts are, what you've come in with, and what you did in your last lifetime, and what your karma is, and what you're working on, and what you're trying to learn, and how your path is supposed to be, and ultimately where your destiny is supposed to go. And as you know, if I've got somebody in front of me, I can do palmistry, but I don't do that because you need to see the hand really physically, and I can't do that over, if we're doing it on the phone or something. That doesn't work. And then I do cards. And I do tarot, and I've written a book called Integral Tarot, and I've also written a book called Integral Numerology. They're on Amazon. And I teach classes on all of these subjects, and I channel, and I sometimes see dead people, though that's not my primary specialty, but it is something that pops in every once in a while. I say I'm not, some of the people like, the amazing people like the Long Island medium, I'm not her, but occasionally something will pop in, which amazes me and amazes them. So I couldn't do a mixture.
But, okay, so there are two things that just came to mind. One, when I've done readings with you, what I feel like what happens is you don't just do a reading. Afterwards, I feel like something is at work. And I know I've mentioned this to you before, but there's something at a higher dimension that starts working. It's like a blessing, a rearrangement. There's some kind of actually karmic healing going on. And I've observed this every single year. And I don't think that's my good imagination, because I have a pretty good psychic perception myself. When it's because of my combination with another person, something happens. And I love that. Now, you obviously work multidimensionally. Can you explain to me in layman's terms what it means, what happens, what is multidimensionality, and how can we create? Second question is how we can do that more in our lives. I mean, what do normally people do, then what is multidimensional living, and then how do we get there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. I think the first thing is that, and I think this is a critical piece, and I think it sounds simplistic, but I think it's a critical piece. I think you have to loosen up your energy field. I think that people get so defined in their personality and their identity. And, I think that you come in with a karmic body that has, its glitches and its problems and its issues and its perceptual angles. But you're not this. You're not your body. You're not your DNA. You're not any of that. So the first thing is, in body work and yoga and breathing and everything you can do to kind of get out of this rigid identity of self, and to recognize that, and you and I both know this, it's like, you and I are one being. I mean, we're not separate beings. We're having a separate experience, but we're not really separate. And so there's this cosmic energy that flows between us, and we relate to each other from a frequency, a harmony, a resonance. And when you loosen up enough, you start to feel that, and that's where, to me, the beginning of that understanding multidimensionality comes in.
Okay. So let me just summarize that. So you're saying what normally we do is we're 3D focused, skin and bones and flesh and hair, and this is me, and identity, even like job and status and money and all that, or not, or the lack thereof. And what we really are, or what we can be, is the being that's behind it, like the not the actor, but actually the light, that shining the light onto a film strip, right? So we're that light. And so obviously the light behind, that's in the generator showing light onto the screen is waves. It's light. It's beyond that. It's like it is here and it's there. It's not the flat thing that becomes a puppet, Yeah. So in that place, you and I and others and all of us can connect, and we can start resonating at another level. So how then do we do that? Really, you loosen up, you do yoga, you do breathing, and then how do you shift into that perception? How do you move into that?
Well, I think you and I both have a gift and a skill that we can kind of take people for a ride there.
Mm-hmm.
So we vibrate so strongly in an altered state that when people get around us, we actually take them with us, and we shift their perception, and they step out of their little bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's something like, oh my gosh, there's this whole other dimension that's right here. And so and you and I have had that. We can do that because we had teachers do that to us. So we've had more powerful people than us shift us, right? And so I think the next step is finding somebody who can shift you, can assist you in shifting, and can help stabilize that shift. Right. I think that's so essential.
So you're saying it's almost like a felt sense that you recommend for people to be around someone who does this, who can shift their perspective. And then can you do me a favor? I just thought of that yesterday. I'd love to do this in an interview, and I don't know if it shows, but let's just be normal. Let's just be normal and look in the camera and go like, yeah. Okay, here you are. Here I am.
Okay.
And then I'd like you to just look at that dot in the camera, and then I'd like you to shift up.
Okay.
Change gears. I feel it. I'm doing it as well. So the thing is, when you watch or feel someone else, there is a part of us that reads it, even if we don't know for sure what it is, and we go like, okay, that's what that is.
Yeah, it literally is like shifting gears, like you're around somebody and it forces them to kind of shift gears and jump to this higher perspective, big time.
Because all of us have it, right? We all have the abilities.
Yeah.
I mean, generally speaking, we're all spirit. We're all the same source being. We're not anything different from each other. We just have learned different skills of how to move up into...
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. How to vibrate to that higher level. And so, and people have had this experience when they get really excited, or when they come across somebody that they recognize on a soul essence level. And what happens is all the chakras sort of blow open in one moment, and there's this excitement, there's this energy, there's this enthusiasm, there's this vitality that starts to happen.
Right.
And we've all had that experience, but it's about learning to maintain that. That I think it takes the discipline, and it takes some skill and some work.
So now I have two good questions. You answered the question as like being in 3D is like being a little bit stuck in the box. Moving in multidimensional living means to become an energy being, becomes more wave oriented, which is what quantum physics is trying to teach us. Quantum physics is saying, hey, give up the particle perception. There is stuff that happens that you can predict when you become aware of the wave dynamic. Now, of course, string theory goes a little bit further and goes into more informational fields. Ultimately, the mystics in the Eastern worlds, they've all said we are one source. That's why you said we are one being. But we each get the opportunity to live this gem and polish it. And earlier you said, okay, so we have multiple lifetimes. We come in with karma from another lifetime. Well, can you tell us a little bit about first, who walks around? I mean, who am I? Where is this part that comes in with a pattern? I guess we all call it soul, but describe that a little bit. I'll keep the next question for the next moment. Okay.
The best way for me to describe it is to describe an aspect within myself a little bit. And so the easiest way for me is that when you look at my astrological chart, and if I go to a Vedic astrologer, they sort of freak out, and they freak out in a bad way, not in a good way, because my chart, they're like, oh my gosh, you're this, it's this terrible chart. It's this, it's this very difficult chart. It's this very hard chart. And I sit there and I kind of breathe, because everything is perception, right? And so, you see these people that they have, again, they're reading from the box. They're reading from their little box.
Mm-hmm.
The box is not the whole answer. The box is not the whole thing, right?
Right.
So what happens for me is that, I know that, yes, I have this difficult chart. And so I love to freak them out, because I'll say, yes, I know I have this terrible, terrible chart. And I know that you think I should be a street person. And I'm a retired professional principal ballet dancer. And I was picked out of the Corps de Ballet by Rudolf Nureyev to dance principal roles in Germany with the Deutsche Oper Berlin. And I was at Juilliard when I was 15, and I've known, Pavarotti and Domingo, and I've been on stage with them, and I've done amazing things. And they're like, you can't do that. You can't do that. They see the limitation in the chart, but they don't see that sometimes limitation is where you lean in and you step beyond the chart, because I know that I am not just my chart. I know that I am an energy field of soul essence, having an experience in a body through limitation. And the limitation is where the gift is, and the karma is even gift.
You flex your muscles through the karma.
Yeah, that's what makes it so interesting.
Okay, so in essence, what you're saying is we have patterns that we can be born into. Somebody can be born in the same moment in time and space. Well, not in the same space, but oh well, close enough. But depending on their soul evolution and brilliance, they can make it happen or not happen, right? So what is this soul essence, and how do we, where does that reside, and how can we polish that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I always say we have, I love Carlos Castaneda, and he says we have an assemblage point. We have a way we have assembled or locked in our soul. And I think that's based on a lot of things: choice, preference, karma, lessons, all sorts of things, right? So I think that, it's inside our energy field. And I think ideally it should be based in the heart. But I think sometimes people push it down and they move it around, and it's not exactly right where it's supposed to be, which is also why it gets stuck and why it doesn't operate well and it doesn't flow well. And so I think that sometimes it's about figuring out how to get them aligned and get them back in alignment with their own energy field, with their soul. So
the soul being the primary driver of the car, so the patterns are the car, and then if you are a good driver, you can drive over and through everything. Which reminds me, I got an astrology reading once in India, and he laid a couple stones, and he says, well, interesting. When you have a sibling, right? Yes. So when your sibling was born, younger sibling was born, your mother or your sibling almost died. Yeah, my mom almost died, had a blood thing. It was in Afghanistan, actually. My mom is German, but we happened to live there. They were working to promote, the world out there. So she almost died. And then he said, that really stuck with me. He said, well, you'll have a good amount of wealth in your life, and you'll always be wealthier than your sister, and you will always be the one who will need to help her out if need be. Until that point, I was sort of thinking, my sister and I were born on the same ground with the same parents, with the same skills. What's wrong with her? No, not quite. But, why am I like this and she's like that? Of course, we're all different, but my job in the pattern that he could see was to have that guardianship over her. And from then on, I no longer resented that in her, that I had to help out here or there. It was her job for me in my pattern to learn and be the giving whatever guardian for her. So and I love looking at patterns. It's like we're born into time-space matrix patterns. And maybe you can give me an idea in a minute what you think, what time-space matrix might mean, and the whole holographic universe concept that's currently in every paper I open, and maybe that's just me. There is an article on the fact that says the entire universe is probably more like a hologram. And as a matter of fact, they've been saying that for a long time. But everybody goes, well, pinch me, it's real. Describe to me time-space matrix as you experience it from the inside out, and how does it work? Obviously, you can read it through astrology and numerology, but why? What is that? Why do we live in a matrix that nobody sees? I mean, we don't think of being in a perfected alignment spot of time and space.
I agree. And it's like, I think the more awake I've become, and I think for you too, the more awake you've become, the looser the matrix of this dimension becomes, and the more you perceive the matrices that are happening around you.
Yep.
So, for me, it's like my first conscious experience of it was when I was in my 7th grade Mrs. Smith's math class. And I thought I was actually daydreaming. I was having a daydream. And what happened was this tunnel of light opened up, and I see myself in the future walk towards me. And she walks towards me and she said, I'm you in the future, and you're about to go out into the hallway, and Patrick is going to say a terrible thing to you that has the potential to collapse you. That matrix is affecting me in the future. Would you do me a favor and not collapse and not believe what he says?
Really?
I said, okay, like that. I just was like, okay. And then the bell rang, and I kind of woke up, and I thought I was daydreaming. Like I thought, oh, you were just hallucinating. You were just dreaming, right? And I went out into the hallway, and there was Patrick by my locker, and he says this terrible thing to me. And I immediately just turned to him and I said, that's not a nice thing to say to me. It's completely unfair. How dare you put a label on me like that? I'm not that person at all, and I'm not okay that you're going to treat me that way, and you can never treat me that way again.
Are you serious?
And in that moment, I literally heard a sound, and the sound was like this. It was like something wobbled, like the time-space continuum did a weird little subtle adjustment, and something waffled. It was just like a waffling. And I felt like something in my whole energy field radically changed. And that has happened 3 times in my life, that my future self has come in and said, don't do that. And I'm like, okay. So, but I mean, that's my experience of it.
Yes.
It's not, this is not the only reality we happen to be
Right.
sitting in. So.
Right. So how and where is time-space at a higher frequency? I mean, like, look, we're sitting here, you in your place, I'm here in Bali, you're in Utah, and we're in the same time zone, so to speak. Not quite, it's morning time here and it's evening time for you, but it's the same now, right? Now you're saying there are different nows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the way the angels explained it to me when I was a child, and they said is that actually you are a being of light that is hundreds of thousands of light years long. Long. And so if you're a being of light, then you can send tentacles down into different time, space realities, and you can form a little droplet and have an experience of separating from the larger flow. And you're this little droplet having an individual experience, but your essence knows that there's something bigger above you. And that's what spirituality is this reaching of this little ball that you are to the bigger matrix that you know is there. And there are moments that you can vibrate high enough that you transcend this dimension and you connect in to the time-space dimension that is no time. It's no time. And in that moment, all of the past lives are happening simultaneously to a being of light. Yes. There is no separation.
Beautiful. I get really chills. I love that meta perspective and it's a feelable thing. You take us there. It's like, yes, that part of us ascends and connects. And I think that's what I teach, and I get really good results with people doing that. You go in your imagination first into that space, but it's a felt sense. Pretend it's real. Ask for guidance from your internal angels or guardians, and they will lift you into a sense. And then you make sure you always get feedback later on. It's like, yeah, it will come to you because of the law of resonance, right? So when we take the time to be quiet and we open up to that magical heightened state, and then we become broader, we become larger time spaces. Now, I've described it in other shows. People have listened to me, how I describe time-space matrix and how we can shift our vibration up. And at each nodal point, they think we have one time. We don't. Like you said, we have, like, as you get higher and higher, you can branch out over longer spaces of who you are. So or eternity I mean, you can do it this way. You can arise, and then all of a sudden you're in the one point of time that embraces all. Or you can say you become all time and see it in breadth and width.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's where you operate when you talk to people. That's where you go into and you go and get glimpses. You always speak about the guides from the other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's like I fortunately have never thought I ever did anything by myself.
I hear that in your interview. You're very inclusive, very considerate, very kind, very authentic. You've never sold out. You know, you've been in the big worlds. I mean, in the big worlds, name it. Your past life, this lifetime. I'm so glad you mentioned it all. As a ballet dancer, all the people in Hollywood who are just normal people, but they've made it into. But you've never sold out. You've remained, and that's what I love about you. You're authentic. You're honorable in everything you do, and you honor the other person as a sovereign, real, true gem.
Thanks. I really try to do that because that to me is the most powerful thing. I think the most powerful gift is authenticity. You and I also operate that way. It's just, to me, it's the heart. I think it's one of the hardest things to maintain in a world that actually is a hologram and is already not real anyway. So if it's not real, you can be anything you want. But I think being authentic in an unreal reality where you can create anything you want is very difficult to do.
So what is a feeling of authenticity? If we can help people say, okay, if from today on you became even more authentic than you thought you were already, and increase that vibrancy within you. Really, what we do is we bring more light in that is more powerful to cut through time, space, and then you can create miracles. That's where things become malleable. How do we do that? Can you share with us a sense or an exercise?
Well, I think that, again, for me, the experience has always been about to get rid of defensiveness. I mean, that's my personal, I think we all have personal challenges that we lock down around, right? So my genetics taught me defensiveness. And so learning how to not, crack and contract and defend myself and get into my ego, but to stay open and to just say, wow, what if everyone is true? What if everyone is right? What if everyone's perspective is accurate? And how can you include it rather than exclude it? That's the hardest thing, and I think that's the beginning of it. So for me, it's about the moment I start feeling defensive, I'm being inauthentic, and then I take a breath, and I'm like, okay, you're not including anymore, you're defending, and I guess that's not helpful.
Right, because that closes the boundary and makes us more particle-oriented, and everything can bump into us, which is nice occasionally. Huh?
It's nice.
I mean, we want to do that too,
Yeah. Well, and I also think for me, fear is it. So like anytime I contract around money, like I go, oh, I'm not going to have enough money. And, I hear the angels say, they're like, I can't get anything to you if you contract. I mean, if you're like this, I can give you so much. But if you're like this, I can't give you very much.
Right.
And so that place again is like loosen, like let go of what you're so attached to. And, you and I kind of operate from this kind of Vajrayana position, which is like, there really isn't a good and there really isn't a bad, it is all one thing. And so the labels that you have are the things that create the contraction.
And they make us specifically who we are, which has its beauty. And if we want to move from where we are, we need to open up to the next vibration. Yeah. I mean, that's what I love about the book, The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment by Thaddeus Golas. It's my Bible. I was sitting when I was 19. Had just become a flight attendant for Lufthansa. I was flying internationally already and, fresh out of Abitur, German high school. And I'm like, my vision was to save money to go to university and study. So here I was sitting in a 5-star hotel with mahogany furniture and everything, posh. Oodles of money. We were being paid well on a daily basis with our monthly salary. And I'm sitting there going, I'm crying my eyes out because my ideal version of myself was to be in Cambridge as a poor student under the roof of some old lady's house. And here I am in the hotel in the opposite dream. What happened, God? What went wrong? So I have this book next to me, The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment, and I open it up and it says, this too you can learn to love. And then it said, contraction is a sure way to stay where you're at. Expansion is a sure way to expand. Learn to love where you're at and you will be expanding. I closed that book. I sat down. I love this. I love this. I love this. I love this. I love this.
Yeah.
And in a year's time, I was a philosophy student in America, but nevertheless, in one room on a wooden board with no mattress, and I just had my heyday.
I know, it's funny. It's like the things that we really want and we really choose, like I really chose the intricacy and the complexity of my life and this body. And, people go, oh, they complain and complain and complain and complain. And, I learned a long time ago that it's like, there's no point in complaining. Yeah. It's not going to really help anything. And so why did I pick this? I picked this. It's got to have some really powerful meaning and great gifts and skills. And so it's given me my humility, and it's given me my compassion, and it's given me my desire to learn about the body and to understand, so that now I can share that awareness and those skills with other people. And so all of those things mean something. And so people, it's such a big piece if you can learn that the thing you think is the problem is actually the solution.
And it's the step into your next expansion. I mean, once you get that, it's so powerful. You've chosen it. You've carefully crafted it. Enjoy it for what it is. Don't resist it, because resistance, what you resist persists. And oh my God, you know what, Susan? I just noticed we're running out of time. I have to put this to a close. If you could just give one small exercise that we can do right now here, maybe together, that would help us get into that authentic self, what would that be?
I would say it's about taking a breath, dropping in, slowing down, and feeling into what is beyond your body, what is beyond your thinking, what is beyond your projection or your identification of who you think you need to be. And actually, that is where your true core essence is. And so to kind of move right from that place. And if you stepped out of all that other stuff and you just stepped from this place of your heart and your love and your truth and your gift and wanting to give that gift, that's authentic.
Thank you. I love that. And you're right. We all have our particular framework of challenges, and each one of us, those challenges become our stepping stones. If we master them, we get to the next level. So we should really say, hooray, I got a stepping stone. I can figure this one out. My lemons will turn to lemonade. What will this be, All right, cool. So thank you so much for being with me in my life personally, and being here for all of us as an inspiration of what is possible, from having come from a supreme ballerina to an amazing psychic reader who also teaches in a very authentic and egoless way other people how to do it. So people can come see you or can call you. And I hope they do that and take advantage of you as being a teacher, of a resonant guide to take them into the next dimension. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ilona. It was lovely to see you.
Yes. And you know what I'm so excited about? I am getting my reading with you after this show is done right now.
Yay!
Yay! All right. See you on the other side in a minute.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Bye.